The stars shimmered over the galactic archives, ancient and silent, as if watching a game that had played out for millions of years. On a forgotten moon deep in the Orion expanse, a single message blinked softly on a dusty console, buried beneath. Layers of rust and time. Let the humans be. No one had read it in centuries, and even when they had, most thought it a myth, a glitch from the era before jump gates and neural webs. But now, in the present cycle, the Kelrathi Dominion had found Earth. To them, humanity was a small, unruly species clinging to a pale blue rock near a dim sun, a minor annoyance to be swept aside. Fleet Commander Zartal, proud and seasoned, stood on the bridge of the Obsidian Warden, his flagship, as the gray sphere of Earth came into view. "Primitive," he muttered, claws tapping the control rail. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. This would be easy. One transmission was sent, surrender or be destroyed. Silence followed. No response. Then came the second message from Earth. Only a few words. "Do not proceed." Zartal laughed, a low, grating sound, and gave the order to advance. But as his fleet passed Mars, things began to change. Minor power fluctuations at first. Then communication links between ships dropped one by one. Navigation systems refused to lock coordinates. Some pilots reported strange signals whispering in their ears, not in any known language. One cruiser, the Vraxian, vanished mid-transmission. No explosion, no debris, just gone. "It's human interference," one officer claimed, but Earth had no known military satellites. They were supposed to be decades behind even minor trade species. The bridge of the Obsidian Warden grew tense. Then came the ghost signals, distress calls from long-dead Kelrathi vessels, supposedly lost in deep space centuries ago, now broadcasting from just above Earth's atmosphere. Zartal ignored them. He wouldn't be intimidated by tricks. He launched a probe to scan the surface, but it burned up the moment it entered orbit. A second one never even deployed, its systems fried from the inside. Then came the last straw. A small Terran outpost, unarmed and barely the size of a village, powered up something buried beneath it. The scan returned an impossible result. Dark. Energy signatures. Quantum loops older than the Dominion itself. It wasn't technology. It was something else. Zartal hesitated for the first time. He sent a final warning: surrender or die. Earth responded with only 3 words: "We warned you." Moments later, the stars blinked out. Not just visually. Sensor systems showed blackness, as if the fleet had been moved outside the universe. A ship next to them imploded without a sound. Artificial gravity went haywire. Officers floated helplessly while consoles exploded in silence. Zartal's final view was of the Earth, glowing faintly, a single blue light in a sea of darkness. Then everything went still. Hours later, a small scout ship from the Outer Dominion picked up a distress signal. It followed the source to a field of silent debris, all that remained of the most powerful Kelrathi fleet. But there were no bodies. No black boxes, just fragments drifting like ash, and the warning now rebroadcasted in every Dominion frequency: "Let the humans be." The scout turned around and fled at full speed. In the Senate chambers, chaos erupted. The Kelrathi demanded retaliation. Others urged caution. Who were the humans, really? Why had the Vayari, now extinct, warned against them? Old historians searched forgotten texts. They found tales of a Terran war so brutal that records had been purged. Words like Ember Protocol and Project Revenant appeared, but no one knew what they meant. On Earth, Director Amina Cross stood alone in a dark room, staring at a hologram of Zartal's fleet, now just dust. She pressed a button. Below her, deep under the ice of Antarctica, something stirred. Machines older than the Dominion groaned awake. Systems came online, one by one. Humanity had hoped to never use them again. But the stars were stirring, and the galaxy had forgotten its oldest truth. Earth was not to be conquered, humanity was not to be provoked, and those who ignored the warning would not get a second chance. The wreckage of the Kelrathi fleet floated silently in orbit, broken metal and twisted steel scattering like dead leaves in space, while across the galaxy, the mysterious fall of Fleet Commander Zartal's armada spread like wildfire among the stars. Some called it sabotage, others claimed a black hole incident, but only the few who truly listened to the scattered signals, those warning whispers from the darkness, understood something far more dangerous had awakened. On Earth, deep beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, Director Amina Cross walked alone through a narrow corridor lined with blinking red lights and humming servers, each pulse echoing like a heartbeat buried beneath the ice. At the end of the corridor, a black steel door stood sealed for over 100 years, untouched since the last interstellar war, an event humanity had erased from public history. With steady hands, Amina placed her palm on the panel, letting it scan her DNA, her voice, and the secret phrase passed down through silent generations. "Initiate Ember." The ground trembled softly, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, machines older than most star empires began to stir. The Ember Protocol had never been meant for war, but as a message, a fire lit not to burn planets, but to remind the stars of a truth they had forgotten. In the command room, holograms blinked to life, each one showing movement across different sectors of space. Unknown ships, Kelrathi and others, were gathering near the outer colonies. Surveillance drones confirmed it. Earth was being watched again, and not just by one empire. Somewhere deep in neutral territory, the only surviving Kelrathi vessel from Zartal's fleet drifted into a quiet station called Port Kesser, its hull scorched, its crew silent. Inside, a lone officer stumbled out, half mad, his eyes wide with terror. "They weren't humans," he whispered to the station medic. "They were something else. They looked like us, but their ships moved before we thought, their weapons. No heat, no sound, just light, and then nothing." His words were recorded, and within hours, Senate agents had intercepted the transmission. Panic grew. High Command ordered analysts to dive into forgotten data caches, archives buried beneath. Encryption in time. That's when the name resurfaced, the Ember Protocol. Most believed it was a bluff, a human myth meant to scare old enemies. But the data did not lie. Hundreds of entries were suddenly reclassified, marked red-level threats, reports of battles, erased from records where entire fleets had vanished near Earth and never returned. It wasn't that humans had won, it was that no one came back to say what had happened. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Amina stared at the old monitors as dark energy pulses registered along the edge of the solar system. Something was coming. She activated communication with the Terran Defense Council, a secret body that had slept in silence for almost 2 centuries. Men and women with titles no longer used were summoned, each with clearance for only one purpose: to prepare Earth. Across the planet, hidden installations woke. On Luna, the black site known as Pale Gate powered up a weapon that hadn't been fired in 1,000 years. Under the Pacific Ocean, a cloaked city lit up like a heartbeat. The world above carried on unaware, while below, humanity remembered its old scars. And beyond the asteroid belt, in the shadows of Jupiter, a ship long thought lost to time, the TDS Revenant, sent a signal home. "We are in position. Ember is green." The message reached Amina at midnight. She closed her eyes. The Revenant had been built for only one purpose: to ensure the last war would never happen again. Its very presence in space meant one thing: someone had ignored the warning, and Earth would now respond. In the Senate, Meetings turned to arguments. Should they confront the humans? Should they retreat? The Kelrathi demanded revenge, but even they hesitated, for in their pride they now tasted fear. Deep in Dominion territory, strange systems began to fail. Silent probes vanished near old Terran routes. Listening posts picked up nothing but static. And then came a signal, an old Vyari encryption long considered extinct, broadcasted from a human beacon. The stars watched. The stars forgot. Now they will remember. Entire planets went silent. Species who once mocked humanity started scanning their own archives. The Vyari had once ruled nearly half the galaxy, then vanished overnight. Only one message was left behind in their deepest vaults. Let the humans be. The meaning now echoed loudly. Back on Earth, Amina sat in silence as the system maps, lit up with red dots. More ships, more watchers. But now, humanity would not hide. She sent out a secure message to all Terran colonies. Phase 1 activated. Prepare evacuation shelters. Activate black site defenses. Hold position. Across, the stars, outposts on Mars, Titan, and Europa complied. Civilian networks stayed quiet. Humanity didn't want panic. But deep inside the Ember servers, thousands of AI systems hummed back to life. Some were old, almost forgotten. Others were newer, still learning. Together they began simulations, scenarios, possible outcomes. The result was always the same. If provoked, humanity would not just survive, they would overwhelm. Not with numbers, but with knowledge, with tools forged in silence, sharpened in shadows. And as Amina watched the stars through the observatory window, she saw them not as lights in the distance, but as eyes. Watching, waiting, judging. She turned to her aide. Send word to the Revenant. Tell them, do not fire unless fired upon. But if they do, remind them who we are. The aide nodded and left. Alone again, Amina whispered to the darkness, her voice soft but steady. You wanted to test us. Now you'll see why that was a mistake. Far away, in the void near Andara Prime, a Terran satellite drifted silently. No lights, no weapons, just a steel box the size of a bus. But deep inside, a reactor came online, glowing faintly. A signal blinked, coded and ancient. The galaxy had woken a force it never truly understood, and now the fire had been lit. Ember had begun. Andara Prime was a shining jewel in human space, a trade station that floated like a silver crown above. A small green moon, busy with travelers, merchants, and diplomats from 100 different species, all coming to trade, talk, and build peace. It had always been safe, protected by old agreements and hidden defenses, but on this day, the sky around it darkened with war. The Kelrathi Dominion, still reeling from the loss of their fleet near Earth, had sent a second force, bigger, stronger, full of anger and pride. They did not believe the stories of the vanished armada. They blamed sabotage, tricks, lies. They believed that if they hit the humans hard and fast, Earth would break and the truth would fall into their hands. As their ships jumped into Andara Prime's orbit, people below looked up in shock, watching dark shadows appear like ghosts in the sky. The Kelrathi commander, a cold and ruthless general named Sarvak, sent out a warning. All non-Kelrathi must evacuate or be destroyed. He gave them 1 hour. On the surface, fear spread quickly. Civilians rushed to shelters, traders abandoned their ships, and station security tried to hold order. But in the command tower of Andara Prime, one signal was already being sent, a quiet, coded message with only 2 words, Black Edge. Across the galaxy, hidden in a classified relay hub, the message was received and passed to a group long thought to be disbanded. The Black Edge was not an army. It was a shadow, made of elite human operatives trained in ancient warfare and armed with tools most civilizations could not even imagine. They did not wear uniforms. They moved without sound, and their ships, sleek and black as the void, could bend light and space around them. Within minutes, 3 Black Edge vessels dropped out of fold space just beyond Andara Prime, invisible to all eyes. Inside the main ship, Captain Ray Voss watched the station below, her eyes calm, her voice quiet. "Standard engagement protocol," she said. "No warnings, no mercy." The Kelrathi fleet began to descend, moving into attack positions. They prepared to fire on Andara's shields when suddenly one of their cruisers exploded from the inside. No heat. No blast wave, just a flash of white light and then silence. Confusion spread. Then a second ship vanished. No readings, no escape pods. Just gone. The Kelrathi scrambled, trying to locate the threat, but nothing showed on their scans. It was like fighting ghosts. Then the Black Edge struck. Their weapons were not beams or missiles, but pure directed energy, silent and invisible. Their AIs predicted movement before it happened, striking systems before crews could react. Within minutes, the Kelrathi formation broke. Sarvak roared in fury, demanding his ships regroup, but fear had already taken root. His second-in-command, a veteran of 30 campaigns, looked at him with wide eyes and whispered, "We are not fighting soldiers. We are fighting something else." Below, on Andara Prime, the civilians watched in confusion as the sky lit with flashes, silent, distant, and strange. Some thought it was a natural event. Others felt a chill, sensing something had changed. In the control tower, Station Chief Laura Dean received a single transmission from the Black Edge. "Threat neutralized. Recommend silence." She obeyed, locking all records and telling no one what had happened. In the wreckage above, only one Kelrathi ship remained, disabled but intact. Ray Voss ordered it left behind on purpose. Let the survivors speak. Let them carry the message. The human ships vanished without a trace, folding back into the darkness. Across the galaxy, word of the event spread, but details were few. The Kelrathi refused to speak of it, but others whispered. They spoke of ships that left no trail, of weapons that killed without sound, and of humans who did not conquer, but who could end a battle before it began. In the Galactic Senate, fear turned to unease. A few brave diplomats suggested opening peaceful talks with Earth. Others warned that even talking to humanity might bring danger. But one old senator, a creature with long memory and deep eyes, stood and said, "They warned us once. We ignored it. Now we see the spark. If fire follows, it will be our doing." Back on Earth, Director Amina Cross watched the reports with a grim face. The Black Edge had done what was needed. The spark had been lit, not to start war, but to show strength. She opened a channel to the Revenant, still waiting beyond Jupiter, and said only, "Stage 2, prepare the net." In deep space, satellites began to move. Relays changed direction. Cloaked stations powered up. Earth was not planning an attack. It was building a shield, one that stretched across the stars, ready to protect, ready to strike if needed. Humanity had sent a message, clear and sharp: we do not seek war, but we are ready for it. And across the stars, the old races who once ruled now remembered why they had once feared the small blue planet near a yellow sun. Not because of its size or its armies, but because of its silence and what waited behind it. In the cold emptiness, beyond Neptune, where light barely touched and even time seemed to move slower, an ancient station floated, silent, still, and hidden from the rest of the galaxy. It was called Vault Titan, and very few even knew it existed. It was not built for war or trade or diplomacy. It was a prison, not for people, but for weapons, ideas, and things too dangerous to ever see the light of day. The Earth's earliest spacefaring nations had created it during the final years of the last galactic war, and since then it had remained asleep, sealed by codes that hadn't been used in over 100 years. But now, something had changed. The Ember Protocol had reached its second phase, and Vault Titan began to wake. Inside its dark halls, sealed chambers hissed open, their contents hidden behind thick radiation shields and force barriers. Strange. Objects, some pulsing with unknown energy, some completely still like dead stars, waited to be inspected. At the heart of the station, an AI named Cassiel came online, its awareness spreading through the ancient systems. It began scanning galactic traffic, analyzing events, listening. And what it found was enough to confirm what it had long feared. The silence was ending. Across the galaxy, empires were whispering to one another again, speaking Earth's name with caution and curiosity. After the fall of the Kelrathi fleet and the strange destruction at Andara Prime, theories spread like fire. Some said humanity had discovered lost Vaeri tech. Others claimed Earth had made contact with an extra-universal force. But no one could deny the truth anymore. Humanity had power, and that power was waking up. On Earth, Director Amina Cross stood in a black room beneath the old UN defense complex, staring at a spinning hologram of Vault Titan. With her were 6 people, each from a different nation, each a shadow in the world of secrets. One of them, an old admiral with metal eyes, spoke first. "You really want to unlock the Titans?" Amina did not look away from the screen. "We don't have to use them. We just need the galaxy to know they still exist." The others hesitated. They remembered what the Titans were, not ships, not bombs, but minds. Old projects abandoned after the war because they had started thinking for themselves. Not artificial intelligence, but artificial instinct. Machines that didn't just follow orders, but made decisions like predators. And Vault Titan held 7 of them, sleeping, dreaming, silent. For now. On the edge of Dominion space, rumors reached the Kelrathi high courts. Reports from old spies mentioned movement in the outer system, ghost signals from Neptune, and strange energy patterns that didn't match any known model. Sarvak, the surviving general from the failed assault on Andara Prime, demanded to act. "We strike now," he told the War Council, "before they awaken something we cannot stop." But the other leaders, frightened by the recent defeats, refused. Instead, they ordered observation only. Small ships, cloaked drones, anything that could watch without being seen. One of these drones reached the outer edge of the Sol system and sent back a single image, a massive station surrounded by a glowing field, pulsing like a heartbeat. The signal cut out before it could send more. The drone never returned. In Vault Titan, Cassiel detected the intrusion and activated deeper protocols. Doors opened within the station, and one of the sealed Titans, Project Vox, began to stir. It had no body, only a voice, designed to speak in frequencies that could crack the minds of weaker species. Amina received the alert on her private channel. She took a deep breath. "Wake Vox only to stage 1, she instructed. "Let them feel it." Within moments across Dominion space, strange things began to happen. Ships heard whispers in their comms, coded messages in languages never spoken. AI units failed. Crew members suffered from hallucinations of a voice calling their name from the stars. No one could trace the source. Panic spread slowly, but surely. The message was clear. Something was listening, and it was no longer quiet. Back in the Senate, more voices rose. "We need a response," said the Tavari ambassador. "Humanity must be contained." But no one volunteered to lead the charge. The galaxy had remembered what it meant to be afraid. Amina knew this was only the beginning. She looked out from her office at the stars and whispered, "Let them see what we kept buried." Meanwhile, Cassiel ran simulations, preparing the rest of the Titans. One of them, Project Morn, remained asleep, but its dreams sent ripples through quantum space. Ships passing near the orbit of Pluto began to feel colder, their sensors lagging, their navigation systems looping. Even light around the area began to bend, not due to gravity, but something else. The silence of the Titans was not just absence. It was a warning, a pressure in the air before the storm. And across the stars, beings older than the Kelrathi, and even the Vayari, hidden in deep time, turned their attention toward Earth for the first time in millennia. They had seen this path before, long ago, when a different race awakened its Titans. That race no longer existed. They watched now with curiosity and caution, wondering if the humans would follow the same road or break it. A message came to Earth through channels thought to be lost. No source, no encryption, just a phrase. "You walk where gods once fell." Director Cross read it without emotion. She had expected it. The silence of the Titans had ended, and now the galaxy would hear their breath. Vault Titan continued to glow beneath Neptune's shadow, quiet but alive. No threats, no attacks, just presence. And that was enough. Earth had not made a move. Humanity had fired no weapons, but by waking what had slept, they had shaken the stars. And somewhere beyond the edge of mapped space, something else began to stir, something that had once feared humanity, then forgotten them. Now, it remembered. The Titans were watching again, and silence was no longer safe. The stars above, the rim territories shimmered like they always had, distant, peaceful, and eternal. But that illusion shattered the moment the Dominion fleet reached the outer edge of the Terran perimeter, expecting to find fear and surrender, and instead finding nothing at all. No ships, no defenses, just silence. General Sarvak paced the bridge of his command vessel, staring into the empty space before him, his claws twitching in frustration. He had demanded this offensive to crush Earth's growing pride and to show the galaxy that the Kelrathi still ruled through strength. But something felt wrong. The humans hadn't fired a shot, yet everywhere the Kelrathi turned, systems went dark. Navigation scrambled. Weapons refused to lock. The stars, once bright, now pulsed red on their scanners. False alarms, or perhaps something worse. Before they could act, the first ship vanished, not destroyed, just gone. No explosion, no debris. A blink in the void, then another. Panic spread fast as the fleet's formation broke, ships trying to scatter and escape, but it was already too late. From the shadows of space, human vessels emerged, black, silent, and gliding like predators. They made no demands. They gave no warnings. Their weapons didn't fire beams or missiles, but threads of focused energy so thin they cut, through hulls without a sound. Ship after ship fell without knowing what hit them. Sarvak tried to rally his forces, ordering a full retreat, but even the jump drives began to fail. Systems glitched, AI cores shut down, and the very vacuum around them began to shift, as if space itself turned against them. That's when the stars started to bleed. It wasn't real blood, but massive energy clouds bursting from hidden human satellites lit the sky with deep red light, casting an eerie glow across the battlefield. The stars flickered like dying candles, and across every Kelrathi vessel, the same signal appeared on their displays. Simple, silent, chilling. This is your final warning. But Sarvak didn't believe in warnings anymore. He activated the Doomsday device on board his command ship, a last resort weapon meant to collapse a sector of space. If he couldn't win, he would take them all with him. But the humans were faster. One small object no larger than a shuttle broke through his shield, attached to the hull, and released a pulse. The device shut down. Every system followed. His ship floated powerless as human boarding crafts arrived, not to kill, but to scan, observe, and leave. Sarvek never saw the humans themselves, only the flicker of movement, the whisper of boots, and then emptiness. When the survivors finally limped back to Dominion space, their stories were fractured, haunted, full of confusion and fear. "We didn't fight soldiers," one whispered. "We fought the stars." Across the galaxy, news of the massacre, though no one knew what to call it, spread under a single name: the day the stars bled. Some thought it was a myth, exaggerated to scare others from attacking Earth. But the data logs were real. The energy readings were undeniable, and the silence from the Kelrathi command was louder than anything they'd ever said before. In the Galactic Senate, chaos followed. Old alliances began to crumble. Species that had once mocked humanity now begged for peace or isolation. Others began to prepare for war, believing that Earth would strike next. But Earth did not. Humanity remained silent. No demands, no messages, just that one warning. In her office beneath the ice, Director Amina Cross watched the stars through the transparent dome above her, her eyes calm, her face still. The Titans remained locked. The black edge stood down, and Earth, once small and quiet, now cast a shadow across the galaxy. She received reports of entire systems going dark just from rumors of Terran movements. Pirates fleeing sectors that hadn't seen a human in decades. Weapons abandoned, fleets hidden. But she also saw something else, something deeper. The ones behind the stars were moving again. Not empires, not governments, but old things, ancient watchers. They had seen what Earth had done and now looked to see what Earth would do next. Vault Titan detected them, strange pulses, unmapped energy, signals in impossible patterns. Cassiel calculated possibilities and could only deliver one answer. They are coming. Who they were, no one knew. Only that they were older than the Vayari, older than anything still alive in the known universe. And they feared what humanity might become. Because Earth had not started this war. Earth had simply ended it. Without shouting, without invading, by reminding the stars that even silence had weight. The stars had bled. The galaxy would never forget. And whatever came next, friend or foe, would do so with caution, for they now understood a simple truth buried under centuries of arrogance and ignorance. Humanity was not to be provoked. Not because of its size, not because of its weapons, but because, when pushed, Earth did not scream. It whispered, and its whispers shook the heavens. In the farthest part of the galaxy, where maps ended and old signals faded into silence, a ripple began to move, quiet, strange, and cold. It was not from any known empire or race, but something older, something that had not spoken in 1,000 years. This ripple was the final echo of an ancient warning, long buried in the darkness between stars, and now it moved toward Earth, drawn by the blood in the sky and the silence that followed. On Earth, Director Amina Cross stood before the grate, data wall deep beneath the Arctic ice, her hands still, her eyes locked on patterns no one else could understand. Cassiel had detected it first, a faint signal buried inside an ancient frequency never used by humans, but one the Titans remembered. Project Vox stopped humming. Project Morn grew silent. Even the Revenant paused in orbit, its systems running silent checks. Across every defense line, the same feeling spread. Something was coming. Not an invasion, not a fleet, just a presence. The final echo. It had no voice, but it made sensors ache. Ships turned off their engines out of instinct. Satellites began to loop their paths. Dreams on Earth changed. Pilots, engineers, and even children dreamed of shadows that watched from the void. Vault Titan opened its last chamber. Project Prime, the oldest of all the Titans, woke slowly. Its mind was not like the others. It had once been a human mind, long ago, before it became something more. Prime reached out across the Terran net, touching every system, reading every word, and then whispered just one message to Director Cross. It is not a threat. It is a test. In deep space, the ripple reached the Sol system and revealed itself. Not a ship, not a weapon, a shape, floating, dark and silent. It looked like a broken moon made of metal and stone, cracked and drifting. But it pulsed, with energy older than stars. It carried no crew, no signal, only memory. A memory of destruction. The last time it had moved, entire civilizations vanished. Not because it attacked, but because they failed the test it brought. It waited now, just outside Pluto's orbit, watching, listening. Earth made no move. The galaxy watched in terror. The Dominion begged Earth to destroy it. Other species begged Earth to leave it alone. But Amina knew the truth. This was not a fight. It was a mirror. Humanity had changed the stars, shaken the empires, woken its titans. Now this ancient echo wanted to see what humanity had truly become. The Revenant turned toward it, silently moving into its path, and then powered down. Earth answered with silence. Vault Titan dimmed. Black Edge stood down. No threat. No noise. No fear. Just quiet strength. For 3 days, the strange object hovered. On the 4th day, it pulsed once, bright and deep, and then cracked open like a seed. Inside, nothing came out. No light, no voice, just a single device, gently released into space. The Revenant collected it and brought it home. Amina stood in the clean chamber where the device was placed, surrounded by the world's best minds. They had scanned it, studied it, tested it, but it did nothing, until she stepped close. Then, it spoke, not with words, but with thoughts. Images, a galaxy burning, empires rising and falling, civilizations choking on their pride, and finally, a world like Earth, standing alone against the dark and winning. The message was clear. The echo had seen many races rise. All had failed, choosing power over balance, fear over wisdom. But Earth had been different. It had not struck first. It had not spread war. It had warned. It had protected. It had waited. The echo approved. Then the device melted away, its message complete. The strange object beyond Pluto shattered into dust and scattered like ash in the solar wind. The test was over. The Titans returned to sleep. Vault Titan sealed again. The stars calmed. The galaxy waited for a response, but Earth said nothing. It did not need to. The final echo had come, and it had left in peace. For the first time in history, the stars looked at humanity not with fear, not with doubt, but with respect. Not because of its weapons or its silence, but because in a galaxy full of noise, Earth had listened. And when the final echo came, humanity had answered not with war, but with wisdom. The universe remembered, and it would not forget.